Good afternoon from sacred space at Titania's realm. It's 5:13 p.m. on the 9th of November 2024. It's currently 26 degrees, been very hot today, very hot. And I haven't been all that well today because I did my regular weekly purging after the wild, innovative, mad mosh last night. I think I danced the wildest I've danced in a long time, which I dance fairly wildly every weekend, so I surpassed my own supernatural feats and superhuman feats is what I mean by that. I'm not supernatural, supranatural. Mama T was in the house. First thing I said when Ramjack came on stage is I said hello to Timmy, the bass guitarist who's covering for Juddy until such time as Juddy's well enough to come back to the stage. And Timmy's a wonderful man as well. They're all wonderful people, Ramjack, and I'm very fond of them all. Excuse me, I'm choking on my own words, but I don't mean it facetiously. I'm actually have an urge to cough. Let me just have a drink of water. They're all wonderful people. They're very kind to me, tolerant of me and my weird ways. So the first thing I said, I was already there. I danced for about half an hour, 45 minutes for the anti-music band or whatever. They were quite good too. So when my gorgeous Ramjet arrived, I nodded to Timmy and I said, "I'm looking forward to the wild mosh tonight, Timmy." He nodded happily because he knows that means Tanya, aka Mama T, is gonna go off tonight, and so we did. Together we all went off in the most profound, wonderful, professional ways, you understand. At one point there was some short guy of my vintage. I knew he was safe because I'd seen him sitting at the table with, I don't know, wife, girlfriend, daughters. It might have been his daughter actually because she was younger than him, but who knows. But I knew he wasn't, I knew he wasn't on the prowl for a woman. But anyway, randomly, I can't remember which song I was moshing to actually. It's sort of, I think in the second set, it was fairly early in the evening. He came up beside me and put his arm, in a mateship way around my shoulder. So I put my arm around his shoulder. I had my fan in my hand like this. And then I was kind of digging into his shoulder, holding onto his shoulder. So we're shoulder to shoulder, moshing. What song was it? Anyway, we had a great time, that gentleman and I. And he was a gentleman too. He wasn't creepy at all. I like it when the men in the clubs aren't being creepy and vile. Anyway, he was lovely chap. And they said at the end of the night, when I said goodbye to her, she said, "Oh, I saw you moshing with that man." I went, "It's just a dance, babies. It doesn't mean I want them." But he was all right. That fella. He was a bit annoying a bit later on, though, because he kept jumping up on the big square coffee table. So he jumped up on it and security went around. So I did my usual voluntary thing, being Mama T, and I said, "Get down now. It's an occupational health and safety risk. You could actually fall and hurt yourself or hurt someone else." And he looked at me funny, but he did get down. And then about an hour later or so, he was back up on the table again. And I just looked at him and went, because it's not actually my job to police everyone in the fucking club, So I just shook my head because, oh no, it's getting too out of order, this one. But anyway, at that point, "Johnny, don't bath in my drinking water for the love of all the birds." Dear goddess. The security guard came and made him get down off the table at that point of the night. It was near the end of the night anyway. We were just getting all very excited and all very silly. But the energy was high and delightful, and my energy was emanating like the catalyst that I am, bringing joy and delight and excess of energy. And I don't know where it comes from sometimes. I don't know how I do it. It just happens organically, you know. I wasn't drunk or anything. Don't need alcohol to do what I do anyway. I've done it many a night, stone cold sober. So it's not about the alcohol. I'm just wondering why my energy ran so high last night. But I mean, it was a good thing. It was good, powerful, positive, emanating, innovating, loving, potent energy. And you know, the few people that came to sit with me and talk to me, women and, you know, some men, were kind and respectful and really were, you know, it was a feedback loop. We were enjoying each other's energy, and it was a symbiotic two-way loop, which is how I like it to be. I hate being fed on by vampires, just saying. But yeah, there was no vampiric feeding last night. Everyone was just joyous and happy and emanating and wonderful. Actually quite wonderful. Ramjet are playing again tonight at Fitzy's, but I only had 5 hours sleep. I got home at about 3, and then I had a sticking hot Epsom salt bath. So I went to bed around about 4:30. So I must have got home later, about 3:30. The bus kept getting stuck in bloody roadworks, even though I had to drive it, getting pissed off. But anyway, whatever time it was some ungodly hour. And then I had to have the bath to unfurl all my really tightly wound up muscles. And so by the time I got to bed, it was 4:30 a.m. Woke up at 9 o'clock, wide awake, just after 5. Maybe it was at 2.5 hours sleep. So. And then I was very, very ill with my gut, which happens regularly when I dance that wild and that hard for so many hours. I pay the next day. It's kind of a releasing and a purging. Oh, dear goddess, did I purge. So then I was wrung out from that for the last couple of hours, and then I received a phone call from my friend Lynn, who thought that I was going to visit today. I don't know why she thought that. I didn't say I was going to visit, and she knows that if I dance on a Friday, that Saturday I'm utterly ratchet with exhaustion and gut issues and bladder issues, and I'm just purging and releasing and done. But anyway, she was not annoyed with me, but disappointed that I didn't come over. So I said, I'll come tomorrow if I feel better. But I only feel moderately better. I've just had a nice soup, and I'm drinking cold water, and I guess I'll be well enough to go and see her tomorrow. My friend Jackie rang me and said, you've got to massage, I'll show you, kinesiology points. So you've got to massage your chest here, and just have a good massage. And you've got to massage your earlobes, and then gently pull them down. And then she said you've got to massage the sides of your thighs. But by the time she rang me to tell me that, I'd done purging for the day, hours and hours of it. So I guess my body had reached homeostasis from the shock of the exercise I give it every weekend, you know. But anyway, I'm not complaining about the dancing. If I was strong enough, I'd be out there again tonight, but that really would kill me. So I have to wait till I've got fitter and stronger and my body goes into less states of shock before I do 2 or even 3 nights. I had with my CPAP I had 3. I stopped breathing 3 times an hour. But I only sat for 4.5 hours, so what's that? Just over 12 times I've stopped breathing, so that's not really a big deal. But it's kind of creeping back up again. Don't know what that's about. Mama T, for Tanya, Psychedelic Dreamer, Miss Five is choosing life every day in every way, wanting her beautiful life, one day with a beautiful man by my side. But to do that, I have to get healthy and strong and powerful in my own core and have more energy and vitality. So I don't think I could handle having a man in my life if I'm running around like a half-dead corpse, although I did it. I did it for 12 years of my youth when I was married, and 5 years that I was involved with Chutney Face, the courtmeister. And I was really in state in those days. I shuffled and drawled 103 kilos and macked out on hefty psych meds. So it's negative thinking to tell myself that I can't have a partner unless I'm super, super healthy, because it's not likely to happen, and other people aren't exactly super healthy in our current paradigm anymore either. So they'll have to accommodate my what's the word? My health issues, and I have to accommodate theirs, whoever that person might end up being in the future. So anyway, it's all about it. Something to think about anyway. Oh, I had a few of the regulars hanging around me last night. I just wore this orange dress. It's just a sundress I was actually wearing during the day. I didn't bother to razzle-dazzle with my underbusts and corsets and, really femme fatale it up. I just wore that nice dress and teamed it up with my pearls and my corals and my coral earrings, and I looked lovely. And wow, yes, they were all looking at me kind of hopeful, which is weird because some of them had girlfriends. Pretty sure they had girlfriends anyway. Well, anyway, I guess they're probably more looking at me because they see how I went completely off of the wild mosh and dressed like a demure, sweet little middle-aged woman. Going berserk must look a bit strange. So that's probably what they were looking at me for, not as sexual prey or anything like that. Oh dear goddess. Anyway. Well, at least now they know, after 14 months of me dancing there regularly every week, it doesn't matter what outfit I've got on, the mosh and the dance and the attitude remains the same, babies. I don't change for anything or anyone. I am what I am. Ayay. Ayay, ashe, ayay. I am that I am. Not all that religious Jew anymore. Shabbat shalom, by the way. Well, that's nearly finished when the sun goes down, but anyway, it's all very academic. My rebellion against everything, fighting my way back to health. Right, I'm going to carry on reading O. Henry because for some weird reason I derive great enjoyment from it. And if I'm deriving great enjoyment from it, maybe you're deriving great enjoyment from it. And if you ain't, you have the power of the X button or the round red button with the square in the middle, or however you switch off your device. I'm not a prisoner of my love. Oh, Charlie. And you're under no obligation to watch my videos, but if you enjoy them as much as I do, then I'm deeply honoured and gratified by that. And if you wish to like and subscribe, although I very rarely ask for that, because I just like people to come and go in freedom, and but it's good for me to see that I have support out in internet world, in particular in YouTube world, since I present these videos on YouTube, And bear in mind, I don't get paid one scrap of money, but when they fall out with me, they always threaten to demonetize me, which is kind of insane since they've never paid me a cent. So it goes round and round, spinning on a dime of insanity, and I just find the whole thing a bit odd, quite frankly. But if you like me, or you like my random weird stories, or my random weird readings, or my own storytelling, or my own journaling, which I've got pretty much almost all 365 days up there. There are a few missing because I just couldn't be asked, you know. But if you find value in how I present to you on YouTube, complete with my rough and ready swearing at times and my weird snake journaling that's happening currently with my resident snake, those videos are kind of going viral. Who would have thought that so many people would be fascinated by my carpet python? But I guess it's people from all over the world that have never seen a snake before and probably find it all just as astonishing as I do. Having a flatmate named Sybil, that I named 2 days ago, having a carpet python for a flatmate, it's a little bit weird even by my standards, people of Earth. Like, I am technically a witch, but I've never been the kind of witch that wanted a snake for a pet. It wasn't part of my life plan. And now it's just invited itself to my sacred space garden. Anyway, babies. Kissy, kissy. Kissy, kissy, kissy. So, yes, I was saying to my friend Jackie, who's a very wonderful psychic medium, I said to her, if you told me 36 years ago when I migrated to Brisbane here in 1988, 1st of August to be exact, that one day I'd have a carpet python as a kind of a pet. I mean, I gave it a bowl of water to drink out of. I don't know if it drinks, but I'm kind of nurturing it along a bit. And that I'd be nurturing a carpet python in my garden, I would have told you that you'd gone stark raving mad and you were talking rubbish. And here we are. You've seen the videos. You can see the empty bowl. And she tipped one over, I think. It's all a bit weird. Now, if I can have a coastal carpet python hanging around my garden, who else might I invite into my home with good and powerful and soulful and positive and life-enhancing intentions? Let's think about that a little bit longer, because the last thing we need is a snake in the grass right under my roof that I can't get rid of, am I right? So, Mama T has to remain circumspect and practice the art of giving out no fucks and just keep dancing. Yes, that's what I'll have to do. I've decided. Also, I'm reserving my heart for the one, and I cannot make any more mistakes. But snaky creature, Miss Sybil out there is she's keeping me very bemused. This morning she was moving quite a bit, her head towards me. Oh shit, I hope she's not going to lunge at me. But then this afternoon, by about 1 o'clock actually, she went back to bed underneath the dragon fruit where she sleeps. So she's living her best life, and she's very contented, and it's kind of what I'm doing too, really. Staying alive, living my best life, being contented. So there is that. So today we'll read chapter 7. I've got no idea what the stories are about, so I'll be just as surprised as you are. The day resurgent. I can see the artist bite the end of his pencil and frown when it comes to drawing his Easter picture, for his legitimate pictorial conceptions of figures pertinent to the festival are but 4 in number. First comes Easter, pagan goddess of spring, which in Australia falls in autumn. I've drunk all the water. Let's just deal with that situation. Needing to drink a lot of water because the purging was intense and it's hot today, so there will be water. Right, where were we? First comes Easter, pagan goddess of spring. Here his fancy may have free play. A beautiful maiden with decorative hair and the proper number of toes will fill the bill. He obviously hasn't kind of prefacing AI art where they always have odd numbers of fingers and toes, am I right? Bear in mind this was written in the late 1800s. Miss Clarice Sant of Vavasour, the well-known model, will pose for it in the Let Her Go Gallagher, or whatever it was that Trilby called it. That was done as one word. I had to decipher it very, very capriciously on the hop. By the gods. Second, the melancholy lady with upturned eyes and a framework of lilies. This is magazine covery, but reliable. Third, Miss Manhattan in the Fifth Avenue Easter Sunday Parade. Fourth, Maggie Murphy with a new red feather in her old straw hat, happy and self-conscious in the Grand Street turnout. Of course the rabbits do not count, nor the Easter eggs, since the higher criticism has hard-boiled them. The limited field of its pictorial possibilities proves that Easter, of all our festival days, is the most vague and shifting in our conception. It belongs to all religions, although the pagans invented it. Going back still further to the first spring, we can see Eve choosing with pride a new green leaf from the tree Ficus carica. Now, the object of this critical and learned preamble is to set forth the theorem that Easter is neither a date, a season, a festival, a holiday, nor an occasion. Usually coincides with Pesach as well, Passover. What it is, you shall find out if you follow in the footsteps of Danny McCree. Easter Sunday dawned as it should, bright and early in its place on the calendar between Saturday and Monday. At 5:24 the sun rose, and at 10:30 Danny followed its example. He went into the kitchen and washed his face at the sink. His mother was frying bacon. She looked at his hard, smooth, knowing countenance as he juggled with the round cake of soap and thought of his father when she first saw him stopping a hot grounder between second and third 22 years before on a vacant lot in Harlem, where the La Paloma apartment house now stands. I have no idea what he means by first saw him stopping a hot grounder, what that actually is. on a vacant lot in Harlem. Maybe it's a baseball reference. I have no idea, people are there. None at all. Shall we Google it? Yes, let's Google it. I hate not knowing things. It grinds my gears to not know things. Let me go. Here we go. Hot grounder. This should be interesting. Hunter, the hot grounder. Baseball dictionary. So I was right. A ground ball hit with great speed. First use 1866. Oak Hill hit a hot grounder between first and second bases and made his first. Well, there you go. I'm an intelligent woman. I can extrapolate truth from almost anything. Except when I really don't know shit. And then my whole life goes to shit. It's not good when I don't know shit. It's also not good when I know too much and I have to pretend I don't know anything and look vague and fey and kind of stupid, because I'm not very good at being stupid, so people usually guess. What are you up to, dreamer? I know nothing. Nothing. And if you ask me directly, I have a proclivity that I have to tell the truth. So that makes it even more awkward. So if I'm looking vague and pretending I'm not there, don't ask me any direct questions. Just wait till the unravelling happens, because I will unravel in time. And spin me too tight like a wound top before I just ping. But anyway, Charlie, can you stop bathing in my drinking water, please? That's not exactly all that salubrious. Just say. Alright, come on. It's nearly your bedtime. She wants to play. She wants to be a wild, free birdie like her mama too. Wild, free birdies want to play. Come on. Yeah, where were we? The hot grounder, blah, 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 where the La Paloma apartment house now stands. In the front room of the flat, Danny's father sat by an open window, smoking his pipe. I used to love it when we had a neighbour down the road that used to smoke a pipe. And I don't know, I found that very comforting, kind of grounding. And especially the favourite part I liked was when he would tap the pipe out at the end and then just do something with his mouth. And he was a nice man. He wasn't a paedophile. There was a few people in the neighbourhood that were actual paedophiles, which was also very comforting. But I mean, I wouldn't have been left alone with him either, though. I mean, I suppose the potential was there, but no, he'd always been decent around me. I took particular note of the men in the neighbourhood that were decent, treated me with kindness and honour and respect for my little bodily autonomy. It is what it is, people. That was my fucking childhood. It's why I still do the mosh, because I was moshing even then on the beach, although I didn't know what that dance was called as a child, obviously. I don't think they invented the mosh till the 80s. Well, gave it a name called mosh. We must find out where the name mosh came from. Let's put history of the mosh. Haha, I was right. I was close to right. Origins and early developments, 1970s to 1980s. As a prominent punk rock scene in Southern California began to form in the late 1970s and early 1980s. I was 15 in 1980 and I wasn't exposed to the music of my generation. I was forced to listen to Shirley Bassey and Chet Atkins and Dean Martin, Vera Lynn, and all those squares. I mean, for the love of all the gods. I didn't know that the whole music scene was blossoming all around me. I got introduced to Lou Reed through my stoner friend, who was very fond of Lou Reed, and I was too young to understand the lyrics, so I was very fond of it too. Still love Lou Reed to this day. And I got introduced to David Bowie through her as well, and Rolling Stones, but I wasn't allowed. I could only listen to that music when I was at her house, and she was 4 years older than me, so I would have been 1980. I was 15. She would have been 19, and that was the music I got exposed to, and it was like, to me, almost illicit. And anyway, with early hardcore punk groups like Fear and Black Flag, moshing as it is understood today began to develop, originally termed slam dancing. Okay, I don't like slamming into people when I mosh. I just do the head spin and flip my hair around. Okay, that's not right. What is the psychology behind mosh pits? I believe it is a teen way of letting feelings out, a so-called therapy. I do it for that reason, and I'm not a teen. I'm an old lady now. When asked by the researcher what moshing means, one member of the hardcore subculture stated, "Moshing to me is a way of self-expression in that you're able to take all your anger and release it." Well, I'm not necessarily angry when I'm moshing. It's not necessarily an expression of anger. It's more kind of an expression of wildness and freedom and being present in my body, because I have to be very grounded with my feet to support myself while I do this. And it's more it's a power manifestation rather than an angry thing. Although I do get angry if people grab me while I'm doing the mosh, which is why it was kind of unusual that I allowed that man to put his arm around me and we held each other. But if he'd grabbed me from behind, just randomly grabbed me, I think it was good actually, because he came and approached me sideline and I could see his intent. And he kind of looked at me and I looked at him, and I realised he wanted to join in with me, and I just gave him a little nod. But if he just randomly grabbed me when I'm doing this, he would have got flicked off with an elbow, or would have told him to fuck off, or because I hate, especially if I'm in full trance, because the mosh puts me into a trance-like state, and I don't like being grabbed when I'm in a trance. I also don't like being grabbed while I'm hanging off a bloody ladder, climbing the ladder. You know, I hate being somebody grabbing me when I'm in kind of a vulnerable state. But anyway, I had a wonderful time last night, and here I was right. The mosh, it did get called mosh in the 70s and 80s. Let's find out what this one says. What are the origins of mosh pits and how did they spread? It always struck me as odd that violently bumping into each other, well, I don't like bumping into each other. My mosh is a weird mosh, because it's like a mosh I do alone. Became the de facto dance move at most of the punk concerts I went to growing up. How did such a tradition become so commonplace? So the first punk-specific dancing was the pogo, just jumping up and down, though you had Iggy Pop doing an early form of crowd surfing as part of the Stooges in the early 70s. There is no definitive story of where pogoing originates, but I've seen people credit it to both sides of the Atlantic, with some even crediting it to Sid Vicious before he was in the Sex Pistols. Blah, 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 blah. The name also has an unclear history. But the most convincing explanation I've heard is that it was taken from Bad Brain singer HR's pseudo-Jamaican pronunciation of MASH. Seems to have passed into the alternative metal scene in the mid-80s. And I just kind of randomly started doing it, probably about, can't even remember when I started the actual moshing. It was 14 years ago. I didn't mosh when I started dancing out in the sea. Don't think I did it. I've always done this kind of tribal kind of stomping dance, but the full flipping the hair around, flipping the head around, I only brought that in, can't remember. I remember telling Tisha to fuck off because she grabbed me when I was in trance moshing at the live wire bar, and I haven't spoken to her for quite some years. So, I must have brought it in about 10 years ago. But anyway, it doesn't matter in the broad scheme of things. I'm babbling. I'm Corin's on it, babbling. Let's get on with the story. But yeah, I was trying to figure out who invented the mosh. Well, I've got my own version of it that I fucking invented, alright? Don't touch me, don't grab me, don't pull on me, don't stop me from spinning my head. If I feel like spinning my fucking head, it's my head. Love you. To the one who was being very protective and not wanting me to get ill and spend the next day purging, but that's what I do after my dance. I've got obstructive sleep apnea. Just walking around breathing takes a lot of energy. So bringing all that powerful spiritual energy into the dance for 3 to 4 hours, or when I went to the daytime party that went for 7, well, I was there for 7 hours, nearly fucking kills me. But I do it quite willingly and happily for my own health benefits, and it's spiritual, it's good physical workout, but it's mainly, I do it mainly actually for my spiritual emanating and healing, and so I enjoy it. Don't take away my enjoyment, because if you do, fuck you, I'll mosh at home. Fuck you, I do what I want, whatever. As I've said in the previous videos, I did my mosh at home when they locked us down in 2021, I think it was. Anyway, it's all good, babies. Now, we have to repeat that last sentence because I went on my little crazy rantantans. Easter Sunday dawned as it should, bright and early in its place on the calendar between Saturday and Monday. At 5:24 the sun rose, and at 10:30 Danny followed its example. That means he pulled his ass out of bed at 10:30. My kind of guy. I'm not one to get up at 5:30 either unless I'm still up having moshed all night. He went into the kitchen and washed his face at the sink. His mother was frying bacon. Don't bite me, Charlie, that hurt. She looked at his hard, smooth, knowing countenance as he juggled with the round cake of soap. Oh yes, we had already read all that. Dear Goddess. Well, I might as well keep going now. And thought of his father when she first saw him stopping a hot grounder between 2nd and 3rd, 22 years before, in a vacant lot in Harlem, where the La Paloma apartment house now stands. In the front room of the flat, Danny's father sat by an open window, smoking his pipe. That's right, that's where I segued. With his dishevelled grey hair tossed about by the breeze. He still clung to his pipe, although his sight had been taken from him 2 years before by a precocious blast of giant powder that went off without permission. Very few blind men care for smoking for the reason that they cannot see the smoke. Now, could you enjoy having the news read to you from an evening newspaper unless you could see the colours of the headlines? "'Tis Easter Day," said Mrs. McCree. "Scramble mine," said Danny. After breakfast, he dressed himself in the Sabbath morning costume of the Canal Street importing house dray chauffeur. Frock coat, striped trousers, patent leathers. Oh, I love patent leather shoes. Well, you know from my video the other day how I love nice shoes, babies. But not at $4,000 a pair, I don't. Fuck that shit. Oh, I'm over it now. Oh, I'm heartbroken. Had to give up on my dreams. Well, it won't be the first dream I've had to give up on, and it won't be the last, babies. By all the gods. Gilded trace chain across front of vest and wing collar. Rolled brim derby and butterfly bow from Schornstein's between 14th Street and Tony's fruit stand. Saturday night sale. "You'll be going out this day, of course, Danny," said old man McCree a little wistfully. "'Tis a kind of holiday, they say. Well, it's fine spring weather. I can feel it in the air." "Why should I not be going out?" demanded Danny in his grumpiest chest tones. "Should I stay in? Am I as good as a horse? One day of rest my team has a week. Who earns the money for the rent and the breakfast you just ate? I'd like to know." "Answer me that." Here comes the American accent. "Maybe." "All right, lad," said the old man. "I'm not complaining. While me two eyes was good, there was nothing better to my mind than a Sunday out. There's a smell of turf and burning brush coming in the windy. I have me tobaccy, a good fine day, and wrist to ye, lad." Sounds a bit Irish now. "Times I wish your mother had learned to read so I might hear the rest about the hippopotamus. But let that be. Now what is this foolishness he talks of hippopotamuses?" asked Danny of his mother as he passed through the kitchen. "Have you been taking him to the zoo? And for what?" "I have not," said Mrs. McCree. "He sits by the windy all day. 'Tis little recreation a blind man among the poor gets it all. I'm thinking they wander in their minds at times. One day he talks of Greece without stopping for the most of an hour. I looks to see if there's lard burning in the frying pan. There is not. He says, I do not understand. 'Tis weary days, Sundays and holidays and all, for a blind man, Danny. There was no better nor stronger than him when he had his two eyes. 'Tis a fine day, son. Enjoy yourself against the morning. There will be cold supper at 6. "Have you heard any talk of a hippopotamus?" asked Danny of Mike, the janitor, as he went out the door downstairs. "I have not," said Mike, pulling his shirt sleeves higher. "But 'tis the only subject in the animal, natural and illegal lists of outrages that I have not been complained to about these 2 days. See the landlord, or else move out if you like. Have ye hippopotamuses in the lease? No? Then?" Looks like we're going to get some rain or storm of some kind. Maybe. "It was the old man who spoke of it," said Danny. "Likely there's nothing in it." Danny walked up the street to the avenue and then struck northward into the heart of the district where Easter, modern Easter, in new bright raiment, leads the Paschal March. Out of towering Brown churches came the blithe music of anthems from the choirs. The broad sidewalks were moving parterres of living flowers. So it seemed when your eye looked upon the Easter girl. Gentlemen, frock-coated, silk-hatted, gardeniaed, sustained the background of the tradition. I picked some gardenias today in my garden, they're lovely. Children carried lilies in their hands. The windows of the brownstone mansions were packed with the most opulent creations of Flora, the sister of the Lady of the Lilies. Around a corner, white-gloved, pink-gilled and tightly buttoned, walked Corrigan the cop, shield to the curb. Danny knew him. "Why, Corrigan," he asked, "is Easter? I know it comes the first time you're full after the moon rises on the 17th of March. But why?" "Is it a proper and religious ceremony, or does the governor appoint it out of politics?" The 17th of March is St. Paddy's Day, so when he says the first time you're full, he means drunk after the moon rises on St. Paddy's Day. It's kind of delightful frame of reference there. "'Tis an annual celebration," said Corrigan, with the judicial air of the third Deputy Police Commissioner. "Peculiar to New York, it extends up to Harlem. Sometimes they has the reserves out at 125th Street. In my opinion, 'tis not political." "Thanks," said Danny. "And say, did you ever hear a man complain of hippopotamuses? When not specially in drink, I mean." "Nothing larger than sea turtles," said Corrigan, reflecting, "and there was wood alcohol in that." Wood alcohol. Whiskey or bourbon? Got me thinking on that one. Danny wondered. The double heavy incumbency of enjoying simultaneously a Sunday and a festival day was his. The sorrows of the hand toiler fit him easily. They are worn so often that they hang with the picturesque lines of the best tailor-made garments. That is why well-fed artists of pencil and pen find in the griefs of the common people their most striking models. But when the Philistine would disport himself, the grimness of Melpomene herself attends upon his capers. Therefore Danny set his jaw hard at Easter and took his pleasure sadly. The family entrance of Dugan's Cafe was feasible, so Danny yielded to the vernal season as far as a glass of bock. A glass of bock. No idea what a glass of bock is. Seated in a dark linoleumed, humid back room, his heart and mind still groped after the mysterious meaning of the springtime jubilee. "Say, Tim," he said to the waiter, "why do they have Easter?" "Skidoo," said Tim, closing a sophisticated eye. "Is that a new one? All right, Tony passed us for you last night, I guess. I give it up. What's the answer? 2 apples or a yard and a half?" From Dugan's, Danny turned back eastward. The April sun seemed to stir in him a vague feeling that he could not construe. He made a wrong diagnosis and decided that it was Katie Conlon. A block from her house on Avenue A, he met her going to church. They pumped hands on the corner. He means shook hands. Unless they were fist pumping, which I don't think they did in those days. That's another relatively new invention. Is that my daughter? No, it is not. It's a little red car went past it like my daughter's car. No, it's food delivery man. Oh, well, it's not like she's going to visit me, is it? Like, we've been estranged now since September 20th, 2023. But it was just that this little red car going slowly up the road. I thought, oh, maybe my daughter's decided to woman up and be a daughter to me. By all the gods. Anyway, where was I? They pumped hands on the corner. Gee, but you look dumpish and dressed up, said Katie. Dumpish must have a different meaning there, because if you call someone dumpy in modern parlance, you're saying that they're short and fat and kind of homogenous. What's wrong? Come away with me to church and be cheerful. I'm not saying nothing. If you can't say something nice, don't say nothing at all. Dumpish and cheerful though. What's doing at church? Asked Danny. Why, it's Easter Saturday. Silly. I waited till after 11 expecting you might come around to go. What does this Easter stand for, Katie? Asked Danny gloomily. Nobody seems to know. Nobody as blind as you, said Katie with spirit. You haven't even looked at my new hat and skirt. Why, it's when all the girls put on new spring clothes. Silly. Are you coming to church with me? I will, said Danny. If this Easter is pulled off there, they ought to be able to give some excuse for it. Not that the hat ain't a beauty. The green roses are great. At church the preacher did some expounding with no pounding. He spoke rapidly, for he was in a hurry to get home to his early Sabbath dinner. But he knew his business. There was one word that controlled his theme. Resurrection. Not a new creation, but a new life arising out of the old. Done that a few times without dying. Did a few times with actual dying as well. But I'm not Jesus, don't get me wrong. It wasn't that kind of a resurrection. But, creating a new life out of ground zeros. For me fucking Dabla, people. That's why I'm perpetually tired. Oh, small violin. I had a wonderful time last night. Did I mention that I had a wonderful time? It was even nice to the men. Shh! Don't spread that around too far. They'll all want some. Dear goddess. Well, anyway, I was nice to one man who noshed with me, is what I meant by that. But not a new creation, but a new life arising out of the old. The congregation had heard it often before, but there was a wonderful hat, a combination of sweet peas and lavender, in the sixth pew from the pulpit. It attracted much attention. After church, Danny lingered on a corner while Katie waited with pique in her sky blue eyes. Are you coming along to the house? She asked. But don't mind me. I'll get there all right. You seem to be studying a lot about something. All right. Will I see you at any time specially, Mr. McCree? I'll be around Wednesday night as usual, said Danny, turning and crossing the street. God, he's really lacking a certain amount of couth, isn't he? Never mind. Katie walked away with the green roses dangling indignantly. I wonder what they mean by green roses. I've never seen green roses. Danny stopped 2 blocks away. Maybe they were dyed green? Maybe it was a thing in the late 1800s? Green roses? Danny stopped 2 blocks away. He stood still with his hands in his pockets at the curb on the corner. His face was that of a graven image. Deep in his soul, something stirred, so small, so fine, so keen and leavening. Oh, you demon birdie! Don't you love how she specifically jumped up on me and climbed up on my shoulder just to do that little bit of soft expression right there? Tweet, tweet, tweet! You demon birdie. Deep in his soul something stirred. Don't do that again. So small, so fine, so keen and leavening that his hard fibres did not recognise it. It was something more tender than the April day, more subtle than the call of the senses, purer and deeper rooted than the love of woman. For had he not turned away from green roses and eyes that had kept him chained for a year? And Danny did not know what it was. The preacher, who was in a hurry to go to his dinner, had told him, but Danny had had no libretto with which to follow the drowsy intonation. But the preacher spoke the truth. Suddenly Danny slapped his leg and gave forth a hoarse yell of delight. "Hippopotamus!" he shouted to an elevated road pillar. "Well, how is that for a bum guess? Why, blast my skylights, I know what he was driving at now. Hippopotamus! Wouldn't that send you to the Bronx?" It's been a year since he heard it, and he didn't miss it so very far. We quit at 469 BC, and this comes next. Well, a wooden man wouldn't have guessed what he was trying to get out of him. Can you just stop hanging off my elbow and biting me, demon bird? I swear to God, sometimes she's a bit possessed. Runs in the family. Danny caught a cross-town car and went up to the rare flat that his labour supported. Old man McCree was still sitting by the window. His extinct pipe lay on the sill. "Will that be you, lad?" he asked. Danny flared into the rage of a strong man who is surprised at the outset of committing a good deed. "Who pays the rent and buys the food that is eaten in this house?" he snapped viciously. "Have I no right to come in?" "You're a faithful lad," said old man McCree with a sigh. "Is it evening yet?" Danny reached up on a shelf and took down a thick book labelled in gilt letters, "The History of Greece." Dust was on it, half an inch thick. He laid it on the table and found a place in it marked by a strip of paper, and then he gave a short roar at the top of his voice and said, "Was it the hippopotamus you wanted to be read to about then?" "Did I hear ye open the book?" said old man McCree. Many and weary be the months since my lad has read it to me. I dunno, but I took a great likings to them Greeks. Ye left off at a place. Oh, are you serious, Charlie? Are you serious? Are you purging, Charlie? Oh, it's freaking everywhere. Where did that cloth go now? It disappeared behind the wall. You know, Mummy was clean before I started the story. I drew on my shoulder. Demon bird. I just stubbed my toe. That really hurts. You can tell I'm tired. These things happen to me when I'm tired. Not the shitting that happens all day long, but the stubbing of the toe. Ouch. Ouch. Right, where was I? 'Tis a fine day outside, lad. Be out and take rest from your work. I've gotten used to me chair by the windy and me pipe. Peloponnesus was the place where we left off, and not Hippopotamus, said Danny. The war began there. It kept doing something for 30 years. The headline says that a guy named Philip of Macedon in 338 BC got to be boss of Greece by getting the decision at the Battle of Chaeronea. I'll read it. With his hand to his ear, wrapped in the Peloponnesian War, old man McCree sat for an hour, listening. Then he got up and felt his way to the door of the kitchen. Mrs. McCree was slicing cold meat. She looked up. Tears were running from old man McCree's eyes. Do you hear our lad reading to me? He said. There is none finer in the land. My two eyes have come back to me again. After supper he said to Danny, 'Tis a happy day, the siesta, and now you will be off to see Katie in the evening. Well enough. Who pays the rent and buys the food that is eaten in this house? Said Danny angrily. Have I no right to stay in it? After supper there is yet to come the reading of the Battle of Corinth, 146 BC, when the kingdom, as they say, became an integral portion of the Roman Empire. Am I nothing in this house? The end. Chapter 8. The fifth wheel. The ranks of the bed line moved closer together, for it was cold, cold. They were alluvial deposit of the stream of life lodged in the delta of Fifth Avenue and Broadway. The bed liners stamped their freezing feet, looked at the empty benches in Madison Square, whence Jack Frost had evicted them, and muttered to one another in a confusion of tongues. The flat iron building with its impious, cloud-piercing architecture looming mistily above them on the opposite delta might well have stood for the Tower of Babel, whence these polyglot idlers had been called by the winged walking delegate of the Lord. Standing in a pine box, a head higher than his flock of goats, the preacher exhorted whatever transient and shifting audience the north wind doled out to him. 'Twas a slave market. 15 cents bought you a man. You deeded him to Morpheus, and the recording angel gave you credit. The preacher was incredibly earnest and unwearied. He had looked over the list of things one may do for one's fellow man and had assumed for himself the task of putting to bed all who might apply at his soapbox on the nights of Wednesday and Sunday. That left but 5 nights for other philanthropists to handle, and had they done their part as well, this wicked city might have become a vast Arcadian dormitory where all might snooze and snore the happy hours away, letting problem plays and the rent man and business go to the deuce. The hour of 8 was but a little while past. Sightseers in a small dark mass of pay ore were gathered in the shadow of General Worth's monument. Now and then, shyly, ostentatiously, carelessly, or with conscientious exactness, one would step forward and bestow upon the preacher small bills or silver. Then a lieutenant of Scandinavian colouring and enthusiasm would march away to a lodging house with a squad of the redeemed. All the while the preacher exhorted the crowd in terms beautifully devoid of eloquence, splendid with the deadly, accusive monotony of truth. Before the picture of the bedliners fades, you must hear one phrase of the preacher's, the one that formed his theme that night. It is worthy of being stencilled on all the white ribbons in the world. No man ever learned to be a drunkard on 5-cent whiskey. Think of it, tippler. It covers the ground from the sprouting rye to the potter's field. A clean-profiled, erect young man in the rear rank of the bedless emulated the terrapin, drawing his head far down into the shell of his coat collar. 'Twas a well-cut tweed coat, and the trousers still showed signs of having flattened themselves beneath a compelling goose. But, conscientiously, I must warn the milliner's apprentice who reads this, expecting a Reginald Montresor in straits, to peruse no further. The young man was no other than Thomas McQuaid, ex-coachman, discharged for drunkenness 1 month before, and now reduced to the grimy ranks of the one-night bed-seekers. If you live in smaller New York, you must know the Van Smythe family carriage, drawn by the two 1,500-pound 100-to-1 shot bays. The carriage is shaped like a bathtub. In each end of it reclines an old lady Van Smythe holding a black sunshade the size of a New Year's Eve feather tickler. What? Never mind. I guess you had to be there. Before his downfall, Thomas McQuaid drove the Van Smythe bays and was himself driven by Annie, the Van Smythe lady's maid. But it is one of the saddest things about romance that a tight shoe or an empty commissary or an aching tooth will make a temporary heretic of any Cupid worshipper. And Thomas's physical troubles were not few. Therefore his soul was less vexed with thoughts of his lost lady's maid than it was by the fancied presence of certain non-existent things that his racked nerves almost convinced him were flying, dancing, crawling and wriggling on the asphalt and in the air above and around the dismal campus of the Bedline Army. Nearly 4 weeks of straight whiskey and a diet limited to crackers, bologna and pickles often guarantees a psycho-zoological sequel. Thus, desperate, freezing, angry, beset by phantoms as he was, he felt the need of human sympathy and intercourse. The bedliner, I don't think he means sexual intercourse by that. He means just someone to talk to. Just wanted to clarify that point. The bedliner standing at his right was a young man of about his own age, shabby but neat. "What's the diagnosis of your case, Freddie?" asked Thomas, with the Freemasonic familiarity of the damned. "Booze, that's mine. You don't look like a panhandler. Neither am I. A month ago I was pushing the lines over the backs of the finest team of Percheron buffaloes that ever made their way down Fifth Avenue in 2.85. And look at me now. Say, how do you come to be at this bed bargain counter rummage sale?" The other young man seemed to welcome the advances of the airy ex-coachman. "No," said he, "mine isn't exactly a case of drink, unless we allow that Cupid as a bartender. I married unwisely, according to the opinion of my unforgiving relatives. I've been out of work for a year because I don't know how to work, and I've been sick in Bellevue and other hospitals 4 months. 4 as in the number 4 months. My wife and kid had to go back to her mother. I was turned out of the hospital yesterday, and I haven't a cent. That's my tale of woe." "Tough luck," said Thomas. "A man alone can pull through all right, but I hate to see the women and kids get the worst of it." Indeed. Just then there hummed up Fifth Avenue a motor car so splendid, so red, so smoothly running, so craftily demolishing the speed regulations, that it drew the attention even of the listless bedliners. Suspended and pinioned on its left side was an extra tyre. When opposite the unfortunate company, the fastenings of this tyre became loosed. It fell to the asphalt, bounded and rolled rapidly in the wake of the flying car. Thomas McQuaid, scenting an opportunity, darted from his place among the preacher's goats. In 30 seconds he had caught the rolling tyre, swung it over his shoulder, and was trotting smartly after the car. On both sides of the avenue, people were shouting, whistling and waving canes at the red car, pointing to the enterprising Thomas coming up with the lost tyre. $1, Thomas had estimated, was the smallest guerdon that so grand an automobilist could offer for the service he had rendered and save his pride. 2 blocks away the car had stopped. There was a little, brown, muffled chauffeur driving, and an imposing gentleman wearing a magnificent sealskin coat and a silk hat on a rear seat. Thomas preferred the captured tyre with his best ex-coachman manner and a look in the brighter of his reddened eyes that was meant to be suggestive to the extent of a silver coin or 2 and receptive up to higher denominations. But the look was not so construed. The seal-skinned gentleman received the tyre, placed it inside the car, gazed intently at the ex-coachman, and muttered to himself inscrutable words. "Strange, strange," said he. "Once or twice even I myself have fancied that the Chaldean gyroscope has availed. Could it be possible?" Then he addressed less mysterious words to the waiting and hopeful Thomas. "Sir, I thank you for your kind rescue of my tyre, and I would ask you, if I may, a question. Do you know the family of Van Smythes living in Washington Square North?" "Oughtn't I to?" replied Thomas. "I lived there. Wish I did yet." The seal-skinned gentleman opened a door of the car. "Step in, please," he said. "You have been expected." Thomas McQuaid obeyed with surprise, but without hesitation. A seat in a motor car seemed better than standing room in the bed line, but after the lap robe had been tucked about him and the auto, because in those days the cars you had to wear a little blanket, sweet, didn't protect you from shit, but I suppose stopped you from getting cold in the breeze. But after the lap robe had been tucked about him and the auto had sped on its course, the peculiarity of the invitation lingered in his mind. Maybe the guy hasn't got any change, was his diagnosis. Lots of these swell rounders don't lug about any ready money. Guess he'll dump me out when he gets to some joint where he can get cash on his mug. Anyhow, it's a cinch that I've got that open-air bed convention beat to a finish. Submerged in his greatcoat, the mysterious automobilist seemed himself to marvel at the surprises of life. Wonderful, amazing, strange, he repeated to himself constantly. When the car had well entered the crosstown 70s, it swung easily a half block and stopped before a row of high-stooped brownstone front houses. "Be kind enough to enter my house with me," said the sealskin gentleman when they had alighted. "He's going to dig up for sure," reflected Thomas, following him inside. There was a dim light in the hall. His host conducted him through a door to the left, closing it after him and leaving them in absolute darkness. Suddenly a luminous globe, strangely decorated, shone faintly in the centre of an immense room that seemed to Thomas more splendidly appointed than any he had ever seen on the stage or read of in fairy stories. The walls were hidden by gorgeous red hangings embroidered with fantastic gold figures. At the rear end of the room were draped portieres of dull gold spangled with silver crescents and stars. The furniture was of the costliest and rarest styles. The ex-coachman's feet sank into rugs as fleecy and deep as snowdrifts. There were 3 or 4 oddly shaped stands or tables covered with black velvet drapery. Thomas McQuaid took in the splendours of this palatial apartment with one eye. With the other he looked for his imposing conductor, to find that he had disappeared. "But gee," muttered Thomas, "this listens like a spook shop. Shouldn't wonder if it ain't one of these Moravian Nights adventures that you read about. Wonder what became of the furry guy." Suddenly a stuffed owl that stood on an ebony perch near the illuminated globe slowly raised its wings and emitted from his eyes a brilliant electric glow. With a fright-born imprecation, Thomas seized a bronze statuette of Hebe from a cabinet nearby and hurled it with all his might at the terrifying and impossible fowl. The owl and his perch went over with a crash. With the sound there was a click, and the room was flooded with light from a dozen frosted globes along the walls and ceiling. The gold portieres parted and closed, and the mysterious automobilist entered the room. He was tall and wore evening dress of perfect cut and accurate taste. A Van Dyke beard of glossy, golden brown, rather long and wavy hair, smoothly parted, and large, magnetic orientally occult eyes gave him a most impressive and striking appearance. If you can conceive a Russian Grand Duke in a Raja's throne room advancing to greet a visiting emperor, you will gather something of the majesty of his manner. But Thomas McQuaid was too near his DTs to be mindful of his P's and Q's. When he viewed the silken, polished and somewhat terrifying host, he thought vaguely of dentists. "Say, Doc," said he resentfully, "that's a hot bird you keep on tap. I hope I didn't break anything, but I've nearly got the willy walloos, and when he threw them 32 candle power lamps of his on me, I took a snapshot at him with that little brass flat iron girl that stood on the sideboard." "That is merely a mechanical toy," said the gentleman, with a wave of his hand. "May I ask you to be seated while I explain why I brought you to my house? Perhaps you would not understand nor be in sympathy with the psychological prompting that caused me to do so. So I will come to the point at once by venturing to refer to your admission that you know the Van Smythe family of Washington Square North." "Any silver missing?" asked Thomas tartly. "Any jewellery displaced? Of course I know 'em. Any of the old lady's sunshades disappeared? Well, I know 'em. And then what?" The Grand Duke rubbed his white hands together softly. "Wonderful," he murmured. "Oh, wonderful. Shall I come to believe in the Chaldean gyroscope myself? Let me assure you," he continued, "that there is nothing for you to fear. Instead, I think I can promise you that a very good fortune awaits you. We will see." "Do they want me back?" asked Thomas, with something of his old professional pride in his voice. "I'll promise to cut out the booze and do the right thing if they'll try me again. But how did you get wise, Doc? But gee, it's the swellest employment agency I was ever in, with its flashlight owls and so forth." With an indulgent smile, my throat's kind of closing up. I think it's from the dust from this book. Dear goddess. With an indulgent smile, the gracious host begged to be excused for 2 minutes. He went out to the sidewalk and gave an order to the chauffeur, who still waited with the car. Returning to the mysterious apartment, he sat by his guest and began to entertain him so well by his witty and genial converse that the poor bedliner almost forgot the cold streets from which he had been so recently and so singularly rescued. A servant brought some tender cold fowl and tea biscuits, and a glass of miraculous wine, and Thomas felt the glamour of Arabia envelop him. Thus half an hour sped quickly, and then the honk of the returned motor car at the door suddenly drew the Grand Duke to his feet with another soft petition for a brief absence. 2 women, well muffled against the cold, were admitted at the front door and suavely conducted by the master of the house down the hall, through another door to the left and into a smaller room, which was screened and segregated from the larger front room by heavy double portieres. Here the furnishings were even more elegant and exquisitely tasteful than in the other. On a gold inlaid rosewood table were scattered sheets of white paper and a queer triangular instrument or toy apparently of gold, standing on little wheels. The taller woman threw back her black veil and loosened her cloak. She was 50, with a wrinkled and sad face. The other, young and plump, took a chair a little distance away to the rear as a servant or an attendant might have done. "You sent for me, Professor Cherubusco?" said the elder woman wearily. "I hope you have something more definite than usual to say. I've about lost the little faith I had in your art. I would not have responded to your call this evening if my sister had not insisted upon it." "Madam," said the Professor, with his princeliest smile, "the true art cannot fail. To find the true psychic and potential branch sometimes requires time. We have not succeeded, I admit, with the cards, the crystal, the stars, the magic formulae of Zarazin, nor the oracle of Poe. But we have at last discovered the true psychic root. The Chaldean gyroscope has been successful in our search." The Professor's voice had a ring that seemed to proclaim his belief in his own words. The elderly lady looked at him with a little more interest. "Why, there was no sense in those words that it wrote with my hands on it," she said. "What do you mean?" "The words were these," said Professor Cherubusco, rising to his full magnificent height. "By the fifth wheel of the chariot he shall come." "I haven't seen many chariots," said the lady, "but I never saw one with 5 wheels." "Progress," said the Professor. "Progress in science and mechanics has accomplished it, though to be exact, we may only speak of it as an extra tire. Progress in occult art has advanced in proportion. Madam, I repeat that the Chaldean gyroscope was it Chaldean? Chaldean gyroscope, since alliteration and all. Chaldean gyroscope has succeeded. I have to laugh at myself sometimes. Took me a while to get there, people of Earth, but I got there in the end. Number 2 always gets there in the end. Where is there? Goddess only knows. I can not only answer the question that you have propounded, but I can produce before your eyes the proof thereof." And now the lady was disturbed both in her disbelief and in her poise. "Oh, Professor," she cried anxiously, "when? Where? Has he been found? Do not keep me in suspense." "I beg you will excuse me for a very few minutes," said Professor Cherubusco, "and I think I can demonstrate to you the efficacy of the true art." Thomas was contentedly munching the last crumbs of the bread and fowl when the enchanter appeared suddenly at his side. "Are you willing to return to your old home if you are assured of a welcome and restoration to favour?" he asked, with his courteous, royal smile. "Do I look bughouse?" answered Thomas. "Enough of the foot-back life for me. But will they have me again? The old lady is as fixed in her ways as a nut on a new axle." "My dear young man," said the other, "she has been searching for you everywhere." "Great," said Thomas. "I'm on the job. That team of dropsical dromedaries they call horses is a handicap for a first-class coachman like myself. But I'll take the job back. Sure, Doc. They're good people to be with." And now a change came o'er the suave countenance of the Caliph of Baghdad. He looked keenly and suspiciously at the ex-coachman. "May I ask what your name is?" he said shortly. "You've been looking for me," said Thomas, "and don't know my name? You're a funny kind of sleuth. You must be one of the Central Office gumshoers. I'm Thomas McQuaid, of course, and I've been chauffeur of the Van Smythe Elephant team for a year. They fired me a month ago for, well, Doc, you saw what I did to your old owl. I went broke on booze, and when I saw the tyre drop off your whiz wagon, I was standing in that squad of hobos at the Worth Monument waiting for a free bed. Now, what's the prize for the best answer to all this?" To his intense surprise, Thomas felt himself lifted by the collar and dragged, without a word of explanation, to the front door. This was opened, and he was kicked forcibly down the steps with one heavy, disillusionizing, humiliating impact of the stupendous Arabian's shoe. As soon as the ex-coachman had recovered his feet and his wits, he hastened as fast as he could eastward toward Broadway. "Crazy guy," was his estimate of the mysterious automobilist. Well, you know, car driving personage. "Just wanted to have some fun kidding, I guess. He might have dug up $1 anyhow. Now I've got to hurry up and get back to that gang of bum bed hunters before they all get preached to sleep." When Thomas reached the end of his 2-mile walk, he found the ranks of the homeless reduced to a squad of perhaps 8 or 10. He took the proper place of a newcomer at the left end of the rear rank. In the file in front of him was the young man who had spoken to him of hospitals and something of a wife and child. "Sorry to see you back again," said the young man, turning to speak to him. "I hoped you had struck something better than this." "Me," said Thomas. "Oh, I just took a run around the block to keep warm. I see the public ain't lending to the Lord very fast tonight." "In this kind of weather," said the young man, "charity avails itself of the proverb, and both begins and ends at home." And now the preacher and his vehement lieutenant struck up a last hymn of petition to Providence and man. Those of the bedliners whose windpipes still registered above 32 degrees hopelessly and tunelessly joined in. In the middle of the second verse, Thomas saw a sturdy girl with wind-tossed drapery battling against the breeze and coming right toward him from the opposite sidewalk. "Annie!" he yelled, and ran toward her. You fool, she cried, weeping and laughing and hanging upon his neck. "Why did you do it?" "The stuff," explained Thomas briefly. "You know, but subsequently knit. Not a drop." He led her to the curb. "How did you happen to see me?" "I came to find you," said Annie, holding tight to his sleeve. "Oh, you big fool. Professor Cherubusco told us that we might find you here." "Professor Don't know the guy. What saloon does he work in?" "He's a clairvoyant, Thomas. The greatest in the world. He found you with a Chaldean telescope," he said. "He's a liar," said Thomas. "I never had it. He never saw me with anybody's telescope." "And he said you came in a chariot with 5 wheels or something." "Annie," said Thomas solicitously, "you're giving me the wheels now. If I had a chariot, I'd have gone to bed in it long ago, and without any singing and preaching for a nightcap either. Listen, You big fool. The missus says she'll take you back. I begged her to, but you must behave. You can go up to the house tonight, and your old room over the stable is ready. Great, said Thomas earnestly. You are it, Annie. But when did these stunts happen? Tonight, at Professor Cherubusco's. He sent his automobile for the missus, and she took me along. I've been there with her before. What's the professor's line? He's a clairvoyant and a witch. The missus consults him. He knows everything, and he ain't done the missus any good yet, though she's paid him hundreds of dollars. But he told us that the stars told him we could find you here. What's the old lady want this cherry buster to do? That's a family secret, said Annie. And now you've asked enough questions. Come on home, you big fool. They had moved but a little way up the street when Thomas stopped. Got any dough with you, Annie? He asked. Annie looked at him sharply. Oh, I know what that look means, said Thomas. You're wrong, not another drop. But there's a guy that was standing next to me in the bed line over there that's in a bad shape. He's the right kind, and he's got wives or kids or something, and he's on the sick list. No booze. If you could dig up $50 for him so he could get a decent bed, I'd like it. Annie's fingers began to wiggle in her purse. Sure, I've got money, said she. Lots of it. $12. And then she added, with woman's ineradicable suspicion of vicarious benevolence, bring him here and let me see him first. Thomas went on his mission. The wan bedliner came readily enough. As the two drew near, Annie looked up from her purse and screamed, Mr. Walter! Oh, Mr. Walter! Is that you, Annie? Said the young man weakly. Oh, Mr. Walter, and the missus hunting high and low for you. Does mother, want to see me? Charlie, dear goddess. Does mother want to see me? He asked, with a flush coming out on his pale cheek. She's been hunting for you high and low. Sure she wants to see you. She wants you to come home. She's tried police and morgues and lawyers and advertising and detectives and rewards and everything. And then she took up clairvoyance. You'll go right home, won't you, Mr. Walter? Gladly, if she wants me, said the young man. 3 years is a long time. I suppose I'll have to walk up, though, unless the streetcars are giving free rides. I used to walk and beat that old plug team of bays we used to drive to the carriage. Have they got them yet? They have, said Thomas feelingly, and they'll have 'em 10 years from now. The life of the Royal Elephantibus truck horsebus is 149 years. I'm the coachman. Just got my reappointment 5 minutes ago. Let's all ride up in a surface car. That is, if Annie will pay the fares. On the Broadway car, Annie handed each one of the prodigals a nickel to pay the conductor. Seems to me you are mighty reckless the way you throw large sums of money around, said Thomas sarcastically. And that purse, said Annie decidedly, is exactly $11.85. I shall take every cent of it tomorrow and give it to Professor Cherubusco, the greatest man in the world. Well, said Thomas, I guess he must be a pretty fly guy to pipe off things the way he does. I'm glad his spooks told him where you could find me. If you'll give me his address, Some day I'll go up there myself and shake his hand. Presently Thomas moved tentatively in his seat and thoughtfully felt an abrasion or two on his knees and elbows. "Say, Annie," said he, confidentially, "maybe it's one of the last dreams of the booze, but I've a kind of a recollection of riding in an automobile with a swell guy that took me to a house full of eagles and arc lights. He fed me on biscuits and hot air and then kicked me down the front steps. If it was the DTs, why am I so sore?" "Shut up, you fool," said Annie. "If I could find that funny guy's house," said Thomas, in conclusion, "I'd go up there some day and punch his nose for him." The end. And thus concludes today's renditions of O. Henry. Rather tired now, but I was tired before and I'll be tired after, and I'll be tired tonight and I'll be tired tomorrow and I'll probably be tired the next day. And in between being tired, I'll continuously Mustang quay myself, galloping into a distant future with a twinkle in my eye and the wry sense of humour, hoping for the impossible dream to unfurl for me proactively and Luffy song. But anyway, good evening and good night. Have a wonderful day, afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are in the space-time continuum. It's now 6:55 p.m. I'm off to watch some Netflix or Prime or whatever takes my fancy, and kind of hungry again. Can you believe that I'm hungry again? I had a really thick soup before I started this reading. I'm craving hot chips. It's probably because I've purged all day and I'm kind of depleted. Dear Goddess. But anyway, I enjoyed that story. It's keeping it real, keeping it philosophical, keeping it poetical. And on that note, I bid you adieu, people of Earth. Stay cool till after school.